This program was produced by Now You Know Media.
Knocked down that phrase earlier. What about this Gothic city? Well, Goth is just a word. It refers to one of those tribes that married Roman imperial structures with their own tribal structures and made kind of this hybrid sort of culture that we call Gothic. And that hybrid culture actually starts in ancient Greece and Rome, part of a Renaissance. And the fundamental structure in the Roman world was the basilica. Now, when I say basilica to you, you think of a Catholic church, but a basilica was a judgment hall in ancient Rome. And at the end of the judgment hall sat the judge, who was the provincial governor, or if you're in Rome, the emperor himself. You got to walk down this long aisle. And this long aisle is called a nave. And at the front is kind of a cross aisle, which is called an apse. And if the building is very high, it lets a little light in, and that kind of atrium, if you will, is called a clerestory. This fundamental structure becomes the first Christian basilicas, because when the Christians come along, they're not going to knock that building down. That's stupid. What they're going to do is convert that building, if you will, and that's why the altar is at the front and the bishop's chair, etc. And so in the aftermath of Rome's transformation, not fall, remember, you have these buildings that are like Roman buildings, Roman-ish, or to use the phrase, Romanesque. And this is the style of building. Now, some people say there's an artificial distinction between Romanesque and Gothic. And I think what you can do is if you take a good art history class, what you'll see is that Romanesque over time becomes Gothic. So if you're looking at a building from 1050 and 1150, which is which, but if you're looking at a building from 550 and 1350, yeah, you're going to see a big difference. And the big difference is that the Romanesque building is not as tall, it's heavy, its walls are very thick, its windows are very small, because the weight of the building is such that they can't go high. And so the innovations become in how do you distribute the weight, and you distribute the weight using something called vaulted ceilings. And these vaults are called barrel vaults or groin vaults. And to use an example, think of a baseball game. So here's a player, he's rounding third, he's coming home, the catcher has the ball. The catcher's not going to stand straight up to receive getting hit by this guy coming. What's he going to do? He's going to spread his leg, he's going to crouch down, he's going to lower his center of gravity to receive that weight. And because of that, he can receive more weight at greater speed. That's what a vault does. And so it allows you to kind of make the walls a little thinner. It allows you to build your basilica a little higher, and you can open up your windows a little bit. And so the facades can now be decorated, because the facade doesn't have to carry so much weight. The vault is carrying the weight, and you can start to decorate the facade as well. And so this transition is occurring 1000, 1100, around there, 1200, and we're moving toward the Gothic style. Now, when you think of the buildings, when you go on those tours, when you look in your own communities and you see Gothic or Neo-Gothic basilicas and cathedrals, you'll see that style not just in church buildings, but in secular buildings as well. So a town hall, or a guild hall, or a castle, or a university, or even a residence is going to start to look like this very distinctive Gothic style. And so what is that Gothic style? Very elaborate arches. One of the most interesting things to do when you go on these tours is to lay on the ground or to look up. And some of the best churches allow you to look up either with binoculars, or they have mirrors on the ground or on pivots. And you can look up at the ceiling, and they're magnified. And you can see how elaborate these vaults are. Higher and higher, more and more elaborate. And these arches which begin to cross each other. And because you do that, they soar up. Hey, listen, you walk into a Gothic cathedral, you look one place and you look one place only. Up. The architecture makes you look up. Form and function being married, because you're in a church building, you're supposed to be raising your eyes from the earth to spiritual matters, from this age into the next age. And so the next big development, the development of the Gothic cathedral, are these things called flying buttresses. You take your arches and you put them outside. And what these things is a scaffold or a skeleton outside, an exoskeleton, and it takes the pressure of those walls outward. And because it does that, the walls can get even thinner, and they can go even higher, and the windows can way open up because the windows aren't doing any work for you. The walls aren't doing any work for you. The roof can now be peaked. And so the weight-bearing architectural element is the flying buttress. The impact on light and windows, on exteriors and facades is amazing. And all of that stuff is done by the guilds. The people designing, what we would call architects and engineers, the people doing the scaffolding, the people cutting the wood and finishing it, the people cutting the stone from afar and finishing it near, the people building the pulleys, the people making the glass, the people staining the glass, the people installing the glass, the people later on painting frescoes, the people making the vestments, the people making the vessels. Those are all guilds. When a bishop says, we're going to build a cathedral, everybody goes crazy because everybody has a job for 100 years. It fuels the economy. It becomes the center of the town, to the point where you have to get water away from the roof, and you don't want the water to spill on the people down below, so you put a gargoyle up there. And you take that gargoyle and you make him some fantastic figure, some really silly-looking figure, caricature-ish figure. He's going to be 300 feet in the air. Why would you possibly make it so special if nobody's going to see it? Because you made it, because you're a craftsman, because you have pride, and you believe that that is your contribution to the creation of this cathedral that will last forever. A tremendous amount of what we say. You know, people say, nobody has craftsmanship anymore. Nobody has pride anymore. The people in the Middle Ages did. And so it's an economic engine when this happens. Now, one of the questions is, could people really see that stained glass way up there? It looks like a person, and all those prophets look alike. You always see a woman up there, and somebody invariably says, must be Mary. It's a Catholic church, it must be Mary. Could people read those stained glass windows? You often hear that this was for an illiterate population. The answer is probably not, but a preacher could make reference to it, and the light that came in different colors would have had an impact. So what we begin to see is that we have economics,